So welcome everyone to today's 6.3 Midnight training. In today's training session, we'll be going over our reports module, highlighting fields and features that include the ability to customize the reports that are generated, creating new reports, properly backing up your own reports in case you'd like to attempt to modify them yourselves, as well as going over how to extract information from reports into a variety of other software. To start things off, I'll take a look at our global settings and other administrative areas. In here, we'll find some default controllers that allow us to maximize the usage of our reports. To start, we'll take a look at our global settings menu within the admin module. In here, to start with, there is all of your company information, which can be provided for the address, phone number, email, and with a URL for your company website as far as information goes. All of this is considered your licensee information. And in some of our reports, which look at the company info or licensee info of your organization, such as invoice reports that look for a return address, or sales reports that do sales by company or organization within your account. The companies that you create in here are the ones that you'll see available. And the information that you see for your company is what will display on reports that pull that information. Additionally, there is a report logo which can be uploaded. This report logo should fit into the dimensions as listed with our max resolution here. To upload a report logo to display on your invoice as well as your estimate reports, simply click the Choose File button and pick the company logo file that you'd like to use. I should restate that this does not support PDFs, and if you support the ability to design or customize your own logo, we definitely suggest shrinking it or extending its size to fit within the bounds of our max provided resolution. This will allow reports to not have to attempt to scale your company logo, possibly making things look skewed or incorrect when printing. Additionally, under the module here, we have the Reports submenu. In here, you can control two things. One, the global signature that is utilized and attached to emails that are used when they're dispatched out of midnight. Bear in mind, this is a global email signature, and this is not an employee-based email signature. So do make sure to customize this in such a way that it doesn't imply as though messages are coming from users at midnight when they're really not. Additionally, there is the default BCC address. Emails that include reports which are sent out of midnight are logged in the system. However, the contents of the emails themselves, such as the attached reports, are not stored within midnight. If you need to prove that a client received an email, or if you need to keep a backup of the actual contents of the emails which are sent out of midnight to your clients, this default BCC should be used. We may suggest that you create an email account on your own particular Outlook 365 or Microsoft server. So that way, when sending this email out of midnight, it includes the attachments, recipients, etc., and goes to a place that can easily verify that emails indeed are going out of our system and being sent to their respective recipients. If a customer concerns or voices concerns to you that they're not receiving emails from you, you can confirm whether or not Midnight is sending these emails out by checking the account inbox for your default BCC listed here. This will help make sure that you can prove whether or not messages are going out, and if they are, you can help identify a solution for the problem as being on the client side versus on your own side. Next up in the admin menu, we have our report type objects. In this menu, you can see all of the different report types or categories for classification that you can list your reports in. The report type objects will, by default, have many names in which you'll see from the various modules will be matching, such as estimate reports, order reports, etc. These reports will display in their respective modules. Other reports that don't have a clear module to associate themselves with, such as accounting, operations, sales reports, these can be, by default, made visible within your reports menu. The primary controller for this is whether or not the Show in Reports menu feature is set to yes. If you need to modify what you see, you can change this by clicking the Edit button and selecting the check or uncheck value here as needed. Paying close note to seeing that anything that has a yes will appear and anything that has a no, such as item reports or order reports, will not appear in this module. Many of our reports currently look at behind-the-scenes numbers that aren't displayed anywhere in an easily discoverable fashion in order to properly load the correct data when running reports, such as invoices, estimates, or inventory records. These reports are by default hidden from the main reports module because these reports will look for that specific value when being opened, so that way they load the correct data. And since you probably don't have an easy way of being able to determine what that secret or hidden number is, it makes things difficult to utilize, such as loading up an invoice report and just typing in the job number to associate it with. Finally, within the admin menu, we have the report objects list. In here, this is where you control the primary settings for the report's behavior themselves rather than the data in which loads on the report. You can also rename your reports in here and mark them as active or inactive. The columns from left to right, you'll see are listed as report name, which is the behind-the-scenes identifier name of the report itself. The report type, or where the report is designed to load. The display name, or what you as the user see the report listed as. The cloned from, which allows you to see what a report may have been built from, as many of our report customizations support the ability to copy the original report and then make modifiers as needed. The last updated and last updated by, giving you both a timestamp, date stamp, and username stamp of the last person to make a modification to a report. The active status, which determines whether or not a report can be used or not. The Show on DJB, which, when enabled, allows you to select this report within the dynamic job board's order pop-out. The Show All Pages, which allows a report, when loaded, to open up all pages entirely, rather than one page at a time. The Filter by User, which is a security-based feature, allowing you to make it so certain reports can only be viewed by certain users in a definable list, in which we'll be going over in a moment. And the Attached File As, giving you the ability to choose the base name of a PDF file name that is applied when a report is dispatched out of midnight. Upon clicking Edit, you can make changes for the reports themselves, such as modifying their name, whether or not they're active, or how they open. You'll see that you cannot modify the report name, and you cannot retroactively remove any of the updated dates or times, as well as the last user to make a modification. This is all just to ensure that our system behaves as it needs to in order to load the data in your reports as efficiently as possible and track any problems that might occur. Once you've made your changes, simply click the Save button to commit them or the Cancel button to omit your changes. Do bear in mind that the majority of our reports here do not have a cloned from listed. In this case, this would mean that that report has not been customized or created from a brand new instance for you. It is thus a stock report in our system and can be used as a clone resource for creation of new reports. Where the filter by user controllers can be defined is under the security types, create role right. Under here, if you select the security role for a specific user, for instance, our sales account, you can click the reports button. And in here, you can pick and choose what reports this particular user account or security account can see or cannot see. Under the available reports list on the left, you'll see all the reports that are able to be accessed by that security role. And under the locked out reports, you'll see all the ones that are not accessible by the security role. To add new instances to either list, starting from available to locked out, simply click the checkbox for the report that you want to hide and click the add button to move it over. And to put it back on the available list, click the checkboxes for the appropriate reports and click remove to remove them from the locked list. Commit your changes by clicking save and close, and you're good to go. Now on to the meat and bones of today's training session, the reports themselves. Reports can be accessed in one of two ways, either through the reports module, which you expand a folder and load the report that's designated to display the information that you're looking for, or within the respective modules such as order reports loading invoices, estimate reports loading estimate reports, and inventory reports loading item data, such as item labels or transaction history reports. You'll be able to find either set of these reports within their own respective reports list. And upon opening it and double-clicking the report to load, you'll be able to pull it up in its own window and prepare for manipulation or extraction as needed. For starters, when you're sending out a report via email, to do that, you will need to click the email button in the upper right. This process allows you to plug in the email address of a recipient. And in the case of using an estimate or order as the report that you're pulling your data from, you will be able to select the to based on the available contacts list of the customer that's being used. The BCC will load based on your administrative settings. The from account will be defaulted to your email account, as in the user that's currently logged in, but can be changed as needed if, say, you're a sales manager and you're sending an email on behalf of another one of your employees. Additionally, the subject line will be listed as invoice number or order number, depending on what type of report you're loading, as well as the attachment, which will receive the name as listed in the attached file as list, with an underscore and a number to reference what job or what estimate it is referencing. You can add extra files, such as if you're emailing a proof along with the PDF of an invoice or quote. And you can customize your signature to a degree by modifying the text window here below before clicking submit to officially send off your email. If you wish to just get your report out of Midnight in a different way, such as an extraction of a PDF or other format, you can instead go to Save and select your desired method of extraction. PDF listed near the top does exactly what you'd expect it to do, with an expandable list of settings to do a few things like change the quality of the report as it's being extracted, etc. Additionally, some other features, depending on the type of report you're loading, such as a sales report or inventory balance report, you'll be able to save it as either an Excel file or as a CSV within the data file option, in which you define that it is indeed a CSV, and you define what the separator or delimiter is. You can alternatively simply print your report by clicking the print button, which is brought straight to your print menu settings, and you can define the printer, color combination, how many sheets print, etc., as you would with any other document. Do be aware that if your report doesn't quite appear to fit on your page correctly, you may have your scaling set off, or you may have the improper paper size selected. And also be aware that if you're loading this within Chrome, the behavior here may display itself a little bit differently compared to whether or not you load it in a different web browser or if you load it on a mobile device. Finally, another way to view a report is to either change the percentage of zoom, much like in Microsoft Word, or to change whether or not you see either a single page or multiple pages of report simultaneously. For reports such as an open orders report, which you're almost guaranteed to always have several pages based on the data that you're doing your searches with, having a one-page display makes it so it behaves just like this, and having a multiple or continuous display allows you to be able to scroll vertically and just see all of your pages in a row. Do be aware that if you set the default in the admin menu for your show all pages to yes, that it is possible for you to run a report which would show possibly hundreds of pages, and that doing this would stress the system, causing your Midnight to lag or possibly time out for safety reasons. Only do the show all pages feature by default to reports you don't ever expect to be more than, say, 5 or 10 pages, such as an invoice or estimate report. Now, in order to create a new report, you will have to have a report already open, and then from there, if you click the Create Report button, you have a few options that come up before bringing you to the designer. Above all, the Clone From option should be selected. And in this case, all you need to do is pick the report that you'd like to use as a base for the design. And then give your report a report name, which is what we'll see when we use backend for the work that we may need to do to help you. And a display name, or what you yourself see the report called on the main screen when you attempt to pick your report. Clicking Submit creates the report, and you're good to go. Now, the reason I say that when you create or end up having to modify a report, always use a clone of one of your bases rather than modifying the original thing. That's because our monthly to bi-monthly update patches that we dispatch out to help improve Midnight's functionality, these patches do revert report mods. Any reports that are classified as a stock report or one that comes prepackaged with the system will have its changes reset to its original state, so that way it can be utilized as efficiently as possible with our update procedures. And we do this to reports that even that have not been updated, just for consistency. What this means is if you modify one of your stock invoices and we push out a patch release to upgrade Midnight, your report changes will effectively be overwritten by our stock overwrite. Custom reports that are created based on you, the user, or us as an imported procedure, will not be touched by this update process. And as such, you can modify a customized or cloned report to your heart's content. Additionally, when preparing to modify a report, we always suggest doing a backup of the report before going too far into the modifications. It can be fairly easy to do something irreversible, such as cause damage on a report by trying to load data that simply isn't compatible with the report itself, formatting something in a format that isn't declared as valid within the reporting tool, or just plain out deleting info that you don't mean to delete. Doing a backup process is incredibly easy, and the conveniences extend not only to being able to have your own backups on handy for provisions to us, but also being to upload a backup of your report so quickly to the point that it would be able to process your backup before an email requesting assistance would even cross through our securities inbox and into our support portal. In order to create a backup, all you need to do is go to File, Save As, save your report as a report file, which is the default choice. And finally, upon saving your report, give it a name. I prefer to give my report names for the files a name of the report itself, and then also the report ID number, which you'll see listed here in the URL. And just like that, you've created a backup. Now, if you ever do something to modify one of your reports and you cause damage that requires that a backup be run, such as deleting components or modifying something to a point where you just can't remember how it got back, go to File, Open Report, select from your list of available backups the report in which you load or need to load, click Open, and click Save, and your report has just been loaded back into a state of proper functionality. Designing reports can be a little tricky, and you can theoretically have multiple screens of Midnight open at a time. We do strongly suggest against, or do not, please definitely do not, ever run reports in the design view and also in the main display view, or multiple reports in the designer view simultaneously. Because of how reports can be modified, if you have more than one report open simultaneously, if you ever have an old report open in the designer, and then have a second report or a newer access report open in the designer, in which you click Save in one, it is entirely possible that your data or design work from the first report that you click Save within will end up having its own formatting cross-save on top of your other report. Because of how easy this is to occur, we again definitely suggest not having multiple reports open, as if you click Save in one of your report and have two on screen, you can potentially delete your own report's changes without even meaning to. Finally, when making modifications to your report, after you make changes such as modifying the formatting, colors, data filters, etc., after you make your changes, you can click the Preview button. If you preview your report and find no critical issues, then it's safe to click the Save button, resave yourself a new updated copy of your backup, and do a safe file exit to leave the report. That covers pretty much everything for going over the actual report creation process. There are a few things that we can do in terms of modifying the reports themselves after we're in the designer. A lot of what you see within the report designer can be controlled in a similar style to what you might see in Microsoft Access or Microsoft Word or Excel. Every component or piece of a report, be it a data call or a data label has its own container that it's part of, as well as possibly a shape, such as a line or box, that goes around that object to make it do what it needs to do. To make modifications, most of the common choices, such as color, font size, font styles such as underlining or bolding, alignment within the container itself, or borders around the box that the text can be found in, they'll be modified by selecting or control clicking each component that you wish to modify, and then selecting the appropriate action from the header to make your modifications as you need. You'll notice as I'm making these changes that on the right side of the page under the Properties panel, depending on what it is I've selected, certain changes will occur. For example, here, if I change my alignment on this header box from left aligned to center aligned, the horizontal alignment here listed change. The Properties panel is a much more detailed way of making your modifications to either one or many components. If you select multiple components, by holding Control and then clicking each one, you can click, drag, and move them around, or make modifications to them, such as changing the dimensions or margins, changing the color, etc., as you need. If you need to change the text in one of your containers, you can double-click into it. This brings up the expression window, in which you can change the text, or in the case of a data call, change what data is loaded by selecting into the data columns list the actual data element that you'd like to make your modifications with. You can fine-tune the dimensions, location, and style of the box that holds the text within it by going into the Properties panel and modifying the position of the container itself. Do note that you'll see the reports are on a grid. By default, all of our reports are grid-based, so that way when you're moving around objects from location to location, you can easily snap edges together to line things up neatly. If you'd like instead to have the free reign of being able to pick where something goes or how large it is, you can modify those adjusted features within the Positioning tab, or also within the Margins tab to squeeze or give your text within a container a little bit more room away from the edge. Other features, such as the page dimensions itself, can be modified under the Page tab, or by clicking a white area of the page and then making your changes as necessary, changing your paper to, say, from legal to letter sized, applying margins, so that way there's a little bit more of a deep or thin gap in terms of printer space. Or making other changes, such as just flat out turning a field off by hitting the Disable button and setting it to false for one of your components that are selected. To make any of the modifications that you need to customize how your report looks in terms of raw data, when you click into a field, you can do data modifications, in which you pick what object loads. But there is a second layer of this operation. You can have text and expressions for data listed. The way data is loaded is that anything using a curly brace on the outside of its own individual data line is how the control is determined for what data you're going to load. If you end up needing to modify a label, like in this case, you'll see I put this text on the outside of my brackets. This is fine, as it allows the text and the data to be displayed in line with each other. Be aware that if you put your label information within the brackets, that now our system is looking for this data element And because our system's data choices, locations, column header names, etc., are named very specifically for logic, that you'll not be able to exactly see or interact with the data that you expect to see if you end up changing up how your labels and your data calls are set. It's probably the most common way that I've seen in terms of users breaking reports. So it's just one way to be careful with what you're working on. Finally, you'll see many of our reports do have math features in them. Some fields, such as this totals field, includes the command to run running sum of all the instances of this data that appear within a data band. Additionally, there's a formatted option at the end of the data call to load the data as a C or currency type field. There are a number of different ways you can handle math, such as putting simple pluses between data components to add prices together that would load, such as adding taxes to your service total to give you a subtotal on an order. And there's various formatting styles that allow you to pick and choose not only as currency, but also as, say, an integer field, a date formatted in a variety of ways, such as the month, date, year, or month, date, year, etc. And finally, there are some basic system variables that exist outside the realm of report-specific data. Those can be found under the system variables list and correspond mostly to simple data pieces such as the page number, the report name, or today's date. These components you'll see on many of our reports listed at the bottom in several areas that correspond to a fairly located footer. Lastly, before we close, I'll save my report, exit one more time, and observe the changes I've just made. There are many more elements to report design, such as being able to add conditions to data cells or text cells, implying that something may occur based on certain criteria being met, such as changing text color, changing text size, applying a border or a background color, or even just swapping out what is displayed entirely, such as if something would show as 0, show instead nothing, or empty, or n/a, not applicable, not available. Additionally, there are some more detailed methods of formatting, and if you open up different reports, such as a work order report, you'll see quite a very heavy layer of design and development. In terms of getting ready to modify these or go over these topics, well, I don't necessarily teach a dedicated advanced level of reporting that goes over all of these different elements. I would prefer to offer a tailored one-on-one session to you as the user, going over any other pieces of modification that you need, allowing you to most effectively tell me what you're looking for out of our system, and for me to come up with an efficient way to do it, as there are just far too many rare or unique scenarios of development that would be able to allow me to teach everything during a single class. With all that said, I'll go ahead and close down today's session and open things up for Q&A.